my channel. I hope if you haven't already that you've hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can keep in touch with all of the music and art tutorial videos that we do together. And I hope you're having a great day today. I'm very excited about today's video. This one is one that I've had a lot of requests for. This is something that will be fun to watch even if you don't do it. It is fun to learn how to use different mediums. So I'm going to post a picture right now that has all of the materials that I'm going to be using today. I have several different types of brushes. I have a paint palette. I have my water dish that I'm going to be using to rinse out my brushes. I also have the Apple Barrel Matte Finish Essentials. It is a basic set that I got at Walmart that has different paint colors in it. The great thing about paints is that you're going to be able to mix colors. So even if you don't get something that has 1,000 colors, you will be able to mix and create your own colors with a very basic set. I always recommend, if you're starting a new medium, don't go and spend a fortune. These brushes that I'm using today, this is just a standard acrylic paintbrush set. And this wasn't very expensive. I got it at Walmart. I also got my paint at Walmart. And you don't even have to have a paint palette. You can use something as simple as a plate. If you want to try this though, go to your local craft store, go to Walmart, and in their craft section, they will have usually a great set. Now, I do want to caution you with acrylic paint, these are not washable colors. So if you get them on your clothes, they're not gonna come off. So be careful with that. You will also need a canvas. Since it's winter, I figured I would do a winter scene. One of the things that are requested the most are how to paint mountains. And I'll be honest, I enjoy painting them as well. If you're going to paint mountains, now you can use brushes. There are ways to do this. But what I recommend is this tool right here. You can buy things like this in the craft section where your brushes are, but this one I actually got in the hardware section. This is a standard 1.5 inch putty knife. I'm going to let you watch me as I paint, and I will explain to you the steps that I'm doing. You can paint along with me. You can paint the same painting that I did, or you can add and subtract things, make it your own. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting with 3 colors, a light blue, a dark blue, and a white. And this is going to be what our background for the entire canvas is going to be. So you see I'm using my brush. I'm just going to mix it up. And now I'm going to add a little bit more white, but I'm not going to completely mix it in. I want it to be just partially mixed so that I can have that really pretty streak effect when I start painting. And now you're just going to cover your canvas. And if you see you need more, you'll see that I'm adding a little bit more of the dark blue and the white. I've already got some of that light blue mixed in there. And you can always add more if you need it. Again, don't over mix, because you'll see as I'm painting you have some of those darker colors and the lighter colors shining through. That's what you want for the background. This is going to be our sky. Now it's time to get an idea for where our mountains are going to be. So while your canvas is still wet, you'll see I'm taking the corner of my putty knife and I'm just making a general outline of where my mountains are going to be in my sky, and I'm coming right across the midpoint of my canvas. And again, you don't want to have those perfectly straight lines because mountains aren't perfectly straight. Now I'm going to take some brown and black, and I'm going to make a very, very dark color. Don't overmix. Load that medium-sized brush on both sides. And now I'm going to start filling in my mountain shape. Since you're painting on a wet canvas, you'll notice some of that blue might shine through. That's okay too. It's going to help add to your shadows. Now you're going to let your paint dry for about 15 to 20 minutes. It won't be fully dry, but it'll be enough so that you can add your snow. Now I'm taking a very fine tip brush and I'm starting in the middle of my mountains, and I'm making just kind of a jagged line. Doesn't have to be perfectly down the center, but this is going to be separating where my shadows and where my snow is going to be. So it's right in the middle of your mountain. Now I'm going to take my putty knife and some white paint. You're going to scoop a line across the back of your knife. Now this is all about pressure. Very, very lightly. I want the back of my mountains there to be my shadow, so I'm going to very, very gently and lightly just drag my white paint across my mountains. So I'm starting at the peak of your mountains, and I'm going to drag just on the side where the sun would hit. So I'm having my sun shining down from the right side of the sky. So all the back of it is going to be my shadow, and all of the front there on the right side is going to be where the sun's hitting. So that's why you're seeing the snow. So don't worry about the shadow. We'll add that here in a little bit. But you're going to do that. Now, one of your mountains are going to be going in front of the other. So whichever mountain you want to come out front, you're going to scoop it down in front of the other one. So you can see how I'm going all the way down to the base there on those. And you can already see the mountains are starting to take shape. Some of those snowy peaks might have more snow getting caught on them. Then you've got those darker areas where maybe the snow doesn't fall. Don't overwork. If you pull too hard or do too much, it's going to smear it and it'll look like you're using a brush. That's why we use the putty knife, because it allows us to use that gentle pressure. You're just basically dragging it across your mountains. So now I grabbed just a little bit of the blue that was left over from my sky, and I'm dipping a little bit of my white paint and a little bit of black, and I'm going to make a very dark bluish gray. That's going to be our shadow on the back. And you're not going to be pressing very hard here either. You want some of that dark gray to shine through, so you're going to just very gently brush that over the back and fill in those little spots where you haven't painted your snow. My fan brush, and I'm just going to lightly grab those edges with my brush, and you can see I'm just using the tips, and I'm just kind of filling in where I think might need to be cleaned up just a little bit, and very lightly pulling down, especially down towards the bottom. And it kind of blends in the bottom and makes it look like your horizon. Now to my gray mixture, I'm going to add a little bit of dark green. I'm going to mix it in, and we're going to make a tree line at the base of our mountains. So I take a fine tip brush, mix that in, and you're going to start at the bottom and swoosh up. So that way the top of your trees are pointed. Just works easier if you work from the bottom up. Once that goes all the way across, I'm going to grab my fan brush, leaving that white mixture on there, dip it into that dark green, and I'm going to just gently work from the bottom up and adding a little bit of that white in with that dark mixture is going to give the illusion that these trees are covered in snow as well. Once I'm finished, I'm going to dip my fan brush in my water, rinse it out, dry it off with a paper towel. I even like to beat it against the table, or in this case my arm, to get the extra water off. Now I'm going to take a 1-inch brush and I'm going to add some white with a little bit of blue and a little bit of that dark mixture. And now we're going to cover the bottom of the canvas. And you see I'm always going to work from side to side, and you're going to blend into the bottom of your tree line and work your way down to the bottom of the canvas. And this is going to bring your canvas forward and have your snow that's at the bottom of the mountain. Now once that's finished, I'm going to add a little bit of the dark green into that same palette, add a little bit of the brown, and I'm going to make a very dark hunter green. So a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, and I'm going to just gently get in between those tree lines, and that's going to give a little bit of color and make those trees come to life a little bit more. Now that my base has had a few minutes to dry while I've been working on my trees, I'm going to add a little bit more of the white and the slightly gray mixture in there. That gives it the illusion of shadows and little tiny hills of the snow. Maybe the snow's having snow drifts. And if you decide here that you want to add a little bit more green, if you think that it's not quite dark enough, you can, which is what I'm doing. So this next part is probably your trickiest part. We're going to make a little cabin. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my putty knife and I'm just going to kind of mark out the roof. And I'm going to add a little shed on this side there. So you can see I'm just kind of scraping the paint. It's giving me an idea. So there's the roof. And I'm going to come off to the side a little bit, add a shed. There's my walls, the other side of the roof, and then you're going to come down. So you're going to do that just to give you an idea of where you're going to want to paint. Now I'm going to mix a really dark black and brown, and that's what we're going to use. I'm going to use my putty knife, scrape it just like I did scrape of paint for the mountains. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go across, and then I'm going to go off to the side, and I'm going to just drag down gently. That's going to create my roof. to just add some brown to the black that I was using to make my roof. And don't overmix. I want it to have the streak look because that's going to give the illusion of boards. So I'm going to come straight down there, and then I'm going to go to the front and side. Make sure you get that peak there for your front. Add more paint as you need to. For the next few minutes, I'm going to take my putty knife and I'm taking the end of it and I'm going to create a door, and then you'll also see that I'm going to create a window and some boards. So I'm just basically scraping the paint and letting the underneath paint shine through a little bit, and that gives the illusion that there is some space in between the boards. I'm going to go off to the side there in a slanted manner, and I'm going to make it look like there's some shingles on the top of the roof. And then I'm taking a little scrape of white paint and doing a very similar technique that I did with my mountains. I'm just going to drag it slowly down and then go back over and make my lines for my shingles, and it'll look like there's some snow falling on that roof. Alright, once you have your cabin complete, now we're going to add some really pretty trees. So I think I'm going to do 2 trees here on the left side of my painting. So I'm going to take some of my brown and black, and I'm going to take my brush and just kind of give an outline of where the tree trunk will be. Remember, don't overmix. We like seeing those shadows that the brown and black mixture can make. Now I'm going to take my putty knife and just gently swipe across your branches with a little bit of the white on there, and that gives the illusion of bark. Now you're going to take your fan brush, and I'm dipping it in a little bit of my brown, my black, my green, and I'm going to make a nice little hunter green. And you start at the top, and you start with it vertically, and then I'm going to just gently increase my pressure as I go down to give the appearance that there are some heavy tree limbs that are coming out of this tree. This is one of my favorite parts about painting, is making the trees. I'm going to do the same thing with my other tree, and I also want to add some snow because, as we know, snow will land on those branches. It's going to bend them down. So I'm adding some of my snow, and I'm just going to touch here and there. I still want that green to shine through a little bit. Now I added a little bit of white to my putty knife, and I'm going to just touch here and there so that it looks like the tree trunk is showing through. Alright, and here at the end I'm just taking my very fine tip brush and I add a little bit of white and black and add just a little bit of snow here and there to clean things up. And that's it.